as well. Bartley Ramsay, how are you?
I'm good, Johnny. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Now, I won't keep you very long now, Bart, but I want to thank you for taking the time, especially at what is pretty much the last minute. It was only earlier today when I texted you and you were straight away, yeah, no problem, no problem, which is great.
Look, I'm only too happy to talk about Finn Harps. I've spent the last, 40 odd years of my life being a regular at Finn Park. So, look, it's a pleasure to talk Finn Harps to anybody.
You sound like a man who's excited about the new season already.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we lost an awful lot of players close season, a lot of quality players. But look, Ollie seems to have worked his magic again and he's pulled some rabbits out of the hat. And I mean, we've got the first Croatian to play in the League of Ireland. We've the first Turkish player to play in the League of Ireland. Look, you can only hope. And look, that's what we all do every season. We hope that we're going to be in for a good season. But one thing for sure with Ollie, like, it's never boring.
That's true as well. And just if we just go back to the recent history now of last year, that was probably one of the more enjoyable seasons to be a Harps fan. It had a few wee bumpy patches now and a few rosary beads coming out towards the end. But but did you enjoy that one, especially because it was maybe the first season back when the fans got back into?
Yeah, I mean, there were patches of the season, like when we went on the runs, when we beat Pats and we beat Derry City away, and like we took a point in Dundalk where we hadn't taken anything for years. Like there are little patches of the season, and you think back and you think, that was bloody good, and we won in Dalymount Park, and I have a lot of very good friends who follow Bohemians, and I always enjoy getting one up over them. So, that was hugely enjoyable. But then there were other nights, we got a bad beating in Richmond Park when fans weren't allowed in by 3 or 4 goals. And, you were kind of looking at the team and you're thinking, this is not gelling well. And, are we going to be in for a real serious sort of hard luck season and get relegated? But look, the players did what they had to do. And eventually, we came out on the upside. And Ollie says that 8th position was what we were aiming for last season. We got 8th. So
mission accomplished. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a success? I mean, compared to some of the spending by other teams, and like Shamrock Rovers have huge resources behind them. St. Pat's have a man behind them. Derry City will have that this season. They obviously didn't have it last season. Compared to what we're up against, I think, the fact that Finn Harps are now going into our 5th season in the Premier Division, that's a huge bonus.
Absolutely. And, I don't want to spend too much on these guys because they are gone now, but they were great servants. Like Ollie said in a recent interview, I think it was with the Irish Independent and one of those national papers anyway. And he said, you always expect to lose 2, maybe 3 players at Harps in a summer, but he lost, I think it was 11. I think this year, when you think the likes of Coyle, Boyd, Tunde, Carlos Sullivan, and my own namesake, Adam Foley as well. And that's, Siddiqui, the list, it was quite a big list there. But at the same time,
and every single one of those players was a quality player, which is why there was interest from somewhere else for them. Had we not played in spells during the season as well as we did, maybe nobody would have come in for them, and they might have stayed in Ballbafay. Will Seymour, he hadn't particularly ripped up any sticks at Sligo Rovers the previous season. What did Ollie see in him? How did Ollie manage to get the best out of him? He was a solid performer. You look at Mark Coyle, you can understand why he's moved on. Damien Duff is going to be his manager. Shelburne, it's full-time football. Like all of those things are a bonus. I mean, had we been able to maybe offer Mark Coyle full-time football, maybe he would have stayed. You don't know. But look, the replacements are in now. I mean, I'm very, very intrigued to see how our Spanish centre half is going to gel with our French defensive midfielder, and how that will all tie in with the Croatian centre forward, and will he score loads of goals for us and be the catalyst for a really good season. I'm hopeful. I don't know, but look, it doesn't change the way I'm going to feel about the club. I'm still going to be there whether we have the best season we've ever had or we have the worst season we've ever had.
Don't forget too, we've got a man who plays for Madagascar in the team as well now. So it's we've become a very cosmopolitan team all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, Bastian's something of an enigma, and I mean, if you talk to, depending who you talk to, if you talk to Waterford fans, he's brilliant. You talk to Bows fans, oh, he never really did it for us. So, maybe, Ollie Horgan is the man to pull another rabbit out of the hat, similar to Will Seymour, and suddenly Bastian Healy will have the season of his life.
I do have a good backstory. I'm sure Ollie won't mind me telling it. Well, maybe he will, but I'll take that risk anyway. But Ollie would have been a school teacher of mine at St. Eunan's College back in the day, a neighbour.
Right.
He used to live around the back here. And also, he was a colleague when I worked in Eunan's for 4 years. And I'll never forget November 2019. The staff at the college, the male staff always organised this weekend trip to London, just a few pints and, maybe a Spurs game or whoever was playing at home. And, if we could get tickets. And Ollie wasn't for going at all. Like, oh, geez, lads, you never invited me. Oh, that's right, I'm not going there at all. And he had this kind of childish strop, the way his kind of humour is, But anyway, a few of the lads had said when we were going up to Belfast Airport, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed up yet. I just wouldn't be surprised. And then we got to London later on that evening. I'm not even sure which airport in London it was, at Gatwick or Luton, or I don't know. But it was a long enough rush hour train into the city. And amid all the faces and all the crowd and all the kind of hustle and bustle of London, one of the guys turned around and he goes, I know this sounds mad, but I think I just seen Ollie on the platform there. And then sure enough, when we got to the hotel, there he was in the tracksuit bottoms, the football socks up over the bottom of the trackies. He was there before us. Right, lads, who am I staying with? Who am I staying with? But because he hadn't booked, we had to squeeze him in. And I ended up having to share. It was a king-size bed, in fairness now. And he was like, Jesus, Johnny, I used to be a teacher of yours. This is a bit silly. You'd be all right. We'd had a few beers. We just go to bed time at that stage, But what he was really there for was actually, he was out scouting players. He was out, on the beaten track around the smaller teams around London and that kind of greater area. I'm not sure which ones exactly. But it just shows you that he'll go to the lengths of the earth to find who he needs,
Yeah, no, there was one of the lads in the Dublin branch, Kevin, sent us into the group chat that we have. He sent us in a picture of him and Ollie in the airport. And of course, we all said, where's he going? He's going to Spain. Who's he going to sign now? This was, of course, pre-pandemic, So, and I never did discover who he was actually watching, but I don't think we signed anybody from a Spanish club or, a Spanish nationality that year either. But look, there's no doubt about it. Ollie works extremely hard and he goes to all different corners just to try and get a few players. But I would love to know how he actually persuades them to get to Donegal. Like, it would be one thing if he was saying this is the capital city and we've got these delights on our doorstep and whatever, Like, what does he sell Donegal to them with, Maybe it's the people. Friendliest people in the world.
That must be it, I'd love to actually be a fly on the wall, as they say, with some of his meetings and all that kind of stuff. But God bless the man, you can't fault him for his effort and his commitment at all. But at the same time, like with some of the more cosmopolitan players that he's brought in, he's kept it close to home as well, with another neighbour of mine, Conor Tourish, joining the team this year, and young Nathan Logue as well from Carndonagh. So he's doing a lot for local football as well. It's not just the high-flying adventures around Europe.
No, and this is the point about Ollie. I think Ollie goes and watches football everywhere.
Yeah.
And like you rock up, like I've been to under-19 matches here in Dublin and whatever else, and you rock up and the first person you'll either see is Ollie or Paul Hegarty when Paul was assistant manager with him. And like the boys left no stone unturned. Like they were making sure that they knew who in the under-19s was progressing, who was coming through, who was worth a look, who wasn't worth a look, and like the amount of work, like I don't know, Ollie's wife is a sister of my own brother's wife. And like, I would often wonder, does Anita ever see him?
Ollie who?
Yeah, exactly.
But he's a character and a half. He's a man, a myth, and a legend all rolled up in one. But now, a lot of listeners to this podcast now partly actually come from places like England and even America as well. But we try and sell it to them a wee bit, like the charm of League of Ireland football. Maybe, I don't know if that's an overstatement, but what do you find it so appealing about, going to places like Finn Park on a Friday night, usually when it's damp and it's cold, but
it's a family, Johnny. It's the people. Like I was talking about the friendliest people in the world is Donegal people, but the League of Ireland family as a whole, because like I would travel all over the country watching Harps as well as being in Finn Park. And like the League of Ireland as a whole, like it's a small community in a lot of respects because, up until post-COVID, you didn't have huge crowds at games.
Mm.
And like my own two boys now, my eldest lad is 20 and the youngest lad, he's 18. And I mean, even though they're born and bred in Dublin, they're Finn Harps fans. They didn't really have a choice. They were brought at a young age and it's ingrained in them. And like when they were younger, they used to say to me, Jesus, Dad, do you know everybody here? Because once you're involved, even in a small sort of way, and, you get talking to people, people are friendly towards you. And when I go to Finn Park, there's always people I look out for. And sadly, some of those people have now passed away as well. And sometimes I find going into Finn Park it's more about the memories than anything else. But there are people around that, God, Bartley, you made it up for the game. God, great to see you. How are you keeping? And, and similarly like that. And like, I always love to go and see Anne Kelly and Kieran in the club shop. If I'm up for a match, I'm in club shop, whether I'm buying or not. And, those type of people, they're the lifeblood. You've Birdie, who does the stadium announcer. You've Tommy Dullahan and young Ronan that do the stewards at the tunnel entrance. Those people are the lifeblood of the club. They're the volunteers. But when you meet them and you get to know them, big friendly welcome and smile. How are you? Great to see you again. And that's throughout. And, I'm leaving loads and loads of people out, just mentioning a few. And like everybody, they all have the same feeling for Finn Harps, the same passion for Finn Harps as I would. And, you're only sharing it.
Do you just mentioned something there which kind of rang a bell with me, that the crowd numbers probably weren't fantastic pre-COVID, but since the grounds have opened up again, there seems to be like a growing, maybe it's a case of absence makes the heart go fonder, like the numbers seem to have gone up. I just saw on Facebook before we come on that there's a record number of season tickets sold for Finn Harps this year as well. And even last year, it was lovely to see such big crowds at the game as well on a Friday night. And I'm talking about kids. And as you say, families there as well, like, mothers bringing children in, not just, the dad nipping out on the Friday night. It was people bringing their kids, which is, it just shows that it's kind of part of the fabric of people as well. And thankfully, people are, putting their hand in their pocket as well, which it's not overly expensive, League of Ireland football, far from it.
No.
Compared to neighbour countries and the other
like if you think about it, the average ticket price, I think, in Finn Park is €14 for the terrace for an adult, which, you go anywhere on the continent, you'd be hard pushed to replicate. You go to the likes of Real Madrid or Barcelona, like you're going to pay 90, 80, 90 euro for a ticket. But like it's like a community thing at Finn Park. It's uniquely Donegal, and like if you go to Sligo again, Sligo is a huge football town, as you'll know with your own background.
It was my dad's club,
your late father,
He wasn't a Harpsman at all. He was very much.
No, he was Sligo Rovers through.
He was very much Sligo Rovers, yeah.
I remember well having conversations with him about it and having a crack about it, and like you go to Sligo, and Sligo's a huge soccer town, and it's all about Sligo Rovers. And yet, there are pockets in Dublin where you go and it's all Shamrock Rovers, St. Pat's or Bohemians, depending where you're going, and that's what I'm saying to you about the League of Ireland community as a whole. We're a small community. Everybody has a passion for their own club, but at the same stage, they recognize your passion for your team. And that's why, we rarely have hooliganism or anything like that. And like, I was delighted towards the end of last season to see so many young people going to matches. Let's be honest, Johnny, they're the lifeblood of the future. People like myself are going to dip away and, eventually, as I mentioned, some of my good people have died since, going that I miss going to Finn Park. And eventually we will move on. And I'm just hoping that those young people will become the lifeblood of the club, and they'll, slot into the positions that people like myself and other people have held within the club. And, the Finn Harps will continue on, for as long as it's possible.
You've definitely left your mark on Finn Harps anyway. Was it back in 2008 or so when you undertook writing the club history, your labour of love? I'm hoping that's the right
Yeah,
phrase to use for it. Yeah.
yeah. No, it was a labour of love, all right. I mean, the funniest story about that is Jared McHugh, who was program editor and photographer and on the committee, and like I know he's still involved in the lotto and stuff there. Jared had come to me and said, look, it's 50th anniversary. This is from 2003. 50th anniversary is next year. You've done all the research. You've got the stats. You've got the interviews done. Why don't you pull it all together and put it into a book? And I says, do you know what? That's a great idea. And 4 years later, I finally managed to finish it. Luckily that I wasn't divorced. I like some of the things that I did to add things, like I spent a year traveling the country trying to get photographs for it. All of that. But look, it was a huge achievement for me, huge sense of satisfaction. And more importantly, I think every club should have a documented history. And Finn Harps now has a documented history, though it's probably about time for somebody to update it. It won't be me, I hasten to add.
You're taking your name out of the hat already, are you?
Look, I wouldn't do it again. It was a huge undertaking at the time. That's not to say that I won't write books about Harps in the future, but it just wouldn't be as all-encompassing as that was. I mean, I prefer to take little snapshots out of the club history rather than do a full club history again.
You're also a collector of memorabilia, from what I can see on social media as well. A few Harps knickknacks have appeared, and jerseys and badges and all this kind of stuff,
Oh, I've a huge amount of it. And like when we get to the new stadium, I've actually been promised a room in the new stadium that we would have a museum that I would be able to show this off properly. It's one of the reasons why I show it off on social media. It's not mine. It's the club's. But I want to share it with as many people as possible. And while I take great pride in what I have, and there's some pieces of it I'd say, oh God, that's fantastic, really love having that piece. I just want to have it on view for everybody to share it. Look, it's no good sitting in a press in my house or in a box somewhere. It really needs to be on display, and hopefully when the new stadium comes about, we will have that room and you can all come and see it.
Absolutely, that's very kind of you. But it kind of adds to that kind of family ethos, as we say. Like, it's not my jersey, it's not my old photograph, it's not my badge, it's the club's and it's everybody's. Because officially, and I think Harps like to rightfully boast about this, that they are a fan-owned club. You know what I mean? Which is still a great thing to have.
And like I consider myself a custodian of this stuff, and people do give me stuff. Based on the fact that I have a huge collection of memorabilia. But I feel like I'm only holding it in trust for the club anyway. Like, I know, that my two boys are not particularly interested in memorabilia and stuff like that. So there's no point me leaving it to them. So fingers crossed the club will have a space for us to have a museum. And literally I will just be passing it on to somebody when, the time comes when I feel it's right.
Just to stay on the history theme for another wee minute, if you don't mind, Bartley, is, again, because we do have a few listeners across the water, it's always a good thing. The Harps do have quite an interesting history, I suppose, of famous visits from famous clubs across the pond, from the likes of England and Scotland who've come here. And they're not too distant past either,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I did an article in the programme, funny enough, last season. It might have been one of the ones during the lockdown. So a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have read it because they wouldn't have bought the programme at the match. But I literally charted the history of, a kind of potted history, if you like, of the clubs that have come and played in Ballybofey. The first English club was Peterborough United, which was just before we played our first game in the League of Ireland. Stoke City came with Gordon Banks, who was the World Cup winner in 1970. We've since had the likes of Manchester City. They were a second division club at that stage.
That's where they really belong before they got all that money, Bartley.
Oh,
that's where my Liverpool head's coming out
that I'm of the blue persuasion in Manchester. You do know that.
Yeah. Well, here we'll keep it Harps. We'll keep it friendly. But no, sorry, I interrupted there. Beg your pardon. Man City.
No. Sorry. With Manchester City, with Southampton, Celtic have been on 4 or 5 occasions. actually probably more now. Celtic probably 6 or 7 occasions when I think about it. We've had the Liverpool legends. We've had the Man United spit legends. We've had Liverpool legends. Like all of this brings a profile with Bolton Wanderers, Coventry City. Ron Atkinson was the manager at the time. With
Derby
Leicester
County
City
as well, yeah.
Well, that was in European football.
Oh, that was
Bartley
complete. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We've
Leicester.
had Leicester City over on 2 occasions. Martin O'Neill was the manager then. We've had some of the, smaller English clubs as well. That Carlisle United came on a couple of occasions. Bolton Wanderers, and then we played in European competition on 4 occasions. We played Aberdeen, Derby County, Everton, and Bursaspor from Turkey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's kind of I wouldn't say it's a forgotten history, but it's a lovely thing to actually have on what I still consider a very young club, from 1954, as clubs go.
Yeah.
It's a lovely list to have,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like, you think about it, Ballbofey, in essence, is a small rural town in Donegal. You look at most other clubs in particularly England and Ireland, they come from the larger conurbation areas, like Dublin, Limerick, Galway, Derry, Sligo, that we're a small rural club. And I think it's a huge, and I take great satisfaction out of this, that we have lasted for over 50 years in the League of Ireland. As Finn Harps, same entity. I mean, you take Cork, for example. How many Cork clubs have we outlasted? There was Cork Hibernians, Cork Celtic, Cork Alberts, Cork United, Cork City have gone belly up, in recent times when they had the Arcaga scandal. So, like, you're looking at Cork with a population of I don't know what, and you look at Ballbofey and Stranorla with the population that's there. There's absolutely no comparison. But I think the beauty of Finn Harps is the support is not just drawn from Ballbofey and Stranorla. It's actually drawn from all over Donegal. And people from Donegal now consider Finn Harps very much their team.
They do, yeah, because I remember we used to maybe debate about it on bar counters over the years, that we felt that there was a lot of people maybe in Inishowen who would support Derry because they're not too far away from it. And then maybe that was just a myth. We had no proof for this. It was just beer talk, really. And then we thought people maybe in Bundoran and the likes would follow Sligo Rovers. But maybe that was just, like I say, too many pints.
No.
But no, I agree with what you're saying from what I've seen now over the last few years.
I actually think there is an element of that people in Inishowen, and this is historical, this is not just in more recent times, would have always looked to Derry because Derry was closer to them, say, than Letterkenny or Ballbofey ever was. And similarly, in the south end of the county, you would have, maybe Bundoran, lesser extent Donegal Town, maybe Ballyshannon. Sligo would be closer to them than, say, Letterkenny or Ballabofey. So there would be an element of what you're saying is correct. But I think that in more recent times, the tide has been turning a little bit. I know we've some very, very good supporters in Buncrana that come down, for every home game. And in fact, I would often see a couple of the lads at away fixtures as well. And then also from the southern end of the county, it's not that long ago, like we had a supporters club running out of Donegal Town as well. So I just think, yes, there is maybe an element of it that people from Donegal Town could go either way, and likewise people from Buncrana could go either way. But, Harps, it is becoming more of a Donegal thing. Maybe the improvement in the roads has helped as well,
Yeah, just wee things like that, because like I'm working in the southwest at the minute, down in Carrick, near Kilcar, and it's kind of,
I do indeed. Good GAA county.
It's a very, very, like, I'm a GA man myself, but but the same thing, they're very GA down there. But yet when I go to the games now on a Friday night, I meet the kids from the school. Hello, Mr. Foley, could you Mr. Foley? The Ask Gaelic even comes out of some of them as well. It's lovely to see that, because it's kind of a remote part of the county,
Well, this is it. But I mean, the Finn Harps school program has helped immensely with that. In inviting groups from schools and from football teams, soccer teams throughout the county to come to Finn Park as guests. And of course, the beauty of it is if we can get those young people up, get them in the door, and they're in on this Donegal schools program. The hope is then the next time there's a Harp home game that they turn around to their mother or their father or uncle, or I don't really care who they ask, but say, can we go to Finn Park next Friday night? And hopefully, if there's bigger crowds, it becomes much more of a bigger occasion. And I mean, like the game against Longford at the end of last season was fantastic. Young kids all running on the pitch looking for players' jerseys and, mementos of the game and whatever. And like, that to me is where you're getting the supporters of the future from. Like, it's all very good and well saying people like myself, stalwarts of the club and whatever else. But like everything else, we will, move on. We'll shuffle off and somebody else hopefully replaces it. And the club just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going.
Absolutely. It is great to see. I know we've mentioned that a few times tonight, but to see young people and families going there in big numbers, it's great. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm only in my 30s. And I think of myself as a young fella. But when I was at that Longford game last year, I was over by the corner flag, near the players' entrance. And
sure.
The kids were all getting selfies with these guys who were obviously some sort of cool social media dudes. And I had no idea who these guys were. But apparently it was the new sponsors, the Guild Sports guys. And they were making a vlog, and I thought, people vlog at Finn Park nowadays. Like, what are it's moved with the times, And I felt old at that point, partly, I'm not going to lie.
Well, I've a few years on you as well, John. So you can imagine how I felt. I actually was out on the pitch because Brendan Bradley was getting a presentation, and I would know Brendan very well. I mean, he's a very, very amenable man. And like, I would have approached him for various aspects of the club history and interviewed him on a number of times. And I've got very friendly with both Brendan and his wife, Aileen, I was out in the pitch and these guys were there, and I'm saying, listen, guys, do you actually realise who this man is? So this guy is the leading goal scorer in the League of Ireland ever. And in fair play to them, they came round and they paid him due deference and chatted to him and whatever else. But like yourself, esports, what's that? Okay, my two lads play FIFA, they play esports, but I haven't got a clue either. I'm just delighted that, a club like Finn Harps can attract a sponsor like Guild Sports and not go down, as many clubs in England have done, it's the gambling route where betting companies, sponsor. And I do believe that was on the table and our board of directors rejected it. And for me, that was a no-brainer, and I was delighted that it was Guild rather than somebody else.
Yeah, just I think the last time I played FIFA, Jason McAteer was on the front cover. That'll tell you how long I've choice the one now. But I will say that night you mentioned against Longford, I think that was one of the most enjoyable nights I've ever had at Finn Park, and it's the most recent because just even that night, it was very kind of a nervous evening going into it because we needed a result to make sure we stayed out of the relegation playoff. And then 2-0 up at halftime. You're that wonderful goal by Connolly as well. And then, but at halftime, I thought it was really good. As you said, Brendan Bradley and yourself were out in the pitch. There was the donation to Donegal Down syndrome as well, which Tony McNamee and a few others were involved in. There was the youth teams being brought out for the successes they'd had. I think it was an under 16 and under 15. I'm not 100% sure.
Under 14, ages. Under 15, yeah.
Oh, 14, 15, yeah. And like two of them kids were my students as well. And, I definitely think it was the most enjoyable night. And that was even before Harps went on to win 4-0 and the pitch invasion. Like, it was just
I think it showed how much a vibrant club can be in Donegal. Like we had the two cup successes at underage level. It's fantastic. Now, whether it produces players for the first team or not, I think it just shows Donegal in a very good light. As you say, like, Brendan is a link to the past. It was wonderful to have him there on the pitch and for him to get an award. And then as well as that, like, we had Guild, the new sponsors who, bring a new dimension to it, as you say, with the vlogging and, the esports aspect to it, and like then, crown it all for once. And I'm a veteran of Harps on the big night failing. Club actually, or the team actually stepped up to the plate. We win 5-0. You have an academy graduate, Luke Rudden, coming on with about 2 or 3 minutes to go, scoring a goal. Ryan Connolly, wonder goal. Will Seymour's goal, I think, settled the nerves a little bit for everybody, because I think, we're about 30 minutes in, and while we were hammering Longford, you can say, is this going to be one of those nights, a breakaway goal for them, and we don't make the breakthrough? Tunde scored a marvellous goal, as Tunde can only do. And Carlo Sullivan scored, an interesting goal, shall we say, which was deflected up and over. But look, they all count and you take them all the time. But like, it was a wonderfully vibrant night. And for once at Finn Harps, it had a happy ending too.
It did, yeah, as well. Like, the rain and that kind of stuff didn't dampen anybody at all. And the fact it was, like I say, the most recent one maybe whets the appetite for that wee bit more as well. Just speaking of now, because I need to know this here now. Have you got a Finn Park routine or a tradition? When you go in match, any place you go to beforehand, any parking spots, anywhere you might them for a pint, things like that there? Yeah?
It all depends, because as you know, Johnny, I'm based in Dublin. I've lived in Dublin for about, nearly 40 years now. But obviously, Finn Harps is still in my blood. It would all depend. If I have to drive up to Finn Park from Dublin, it obviously changes the routine completely. I'd normally try and park on the main street in Ballbofey, facing towards Letterkenny, so that I can, get out easily enough. I usually wander up, go in the Navanny Street entrance, pick up a programme from Billy Vance, take a walk over to the club shop, chatting to whoever I meet on the way, go into the club shop, have a quick chat with Anne or Kieran, whoever's free at the time, come back round. And on pre-COVID days, my father is a season ticket holder, as is my brother, and they would have stood in the shed just below the seats. Mm-hmm. So I would eventually make my way around to them and obviously watch the game from that vantage point. Now, since COVID, Dad, who's 80 was 80 this year, he decided, he wanted to be out in the open air, and we went up behind the goals at the town end, up on the terrace. So you'll find me in behind the goals there with my dad, and hopefully my brother. That usually makes the game. So sometimes, with DJing and whatever, he wouldn't make it. So that's normally where we would head for now. If it's a different occasion and I don't have to drive from Dublin, I'd obviously go to Letterkenny and travel to the game with my dad and my brother. Neither of them take a drink, so usually going to a public house is not part of my repertoire going into Finn Park.
I was just thinking there when you were saying that, Bartley, it's like this man's tradition or his routine sounds so much more wholesome than mine. Mine is a burger and chips with a big blob of curry, and then maybe even a cheeky bottle of beer too, if I'm not driving. And even if I am, I might buy a non-alcoholic one just to be part of it, you know what I mean? But that's it. It's great that we all have our own kind of wee thing as well. I think the fact that the games are played on Friday night as well, it's that we reward after a week's work and things like that there as well. Like, it's, you might have a tough week at work, but the lights will be there in Ballbofey for you when you're ready.
Listen, I've always said that going to League of Ireland football is my, how would you put it, my mental health safety valve. As you say, it doesn't matter how crap a week you've had, you're itching to get going to the match, whether it be in Finn Park or it be further afield in the country. Like, you're itching to get to the match. You can go, you can do whatever you want to do. You can sing, you can keep quiet, you can roar and shout, you can bounce up and down. And hopefully, that the Harps score a couple of goals and you do get bouncing up and down. And, look, it sets you up for the weekend then. You know that your Saturday and Sunday is free. You've kind of got the stresses and strains of the week out of your system. And, you can get up on Saturday morning, hopefully in a good humour because Harps have won.
Hopefully.
And not in a bad humour because you've been robbed by a last minute goal or a stupid refereeing decision or something like that. But, that it also gives you something to talk about for the weekend then. That somebody will meet you in the street and they say, oh, we had the match last night. And you'll have a little conversation about the match. And as I say, look, football, I've been involved in it, all my life. And it's always been one of my sort of safety valves in the sense of keeping my head right.
You gave me a good flashback there, actually, to your father. I was working in the restaurant in the golf club years ago, out in Barnhill in Letterkenny, and it was a Saturday evening. There must have been some function on. I used to kind of go between the bar and the waiting responsibilities. And your dad was just back from Finn Park. It was a Saturday night game. And, phones weren't what they are nowadays. So I said, Barry, how did Harps go? He goes, oh, they were robbed. So they were. I said, right, really? I said, how were they robbed? He goes, the fourth goal was a mile offside. Like, right. So I say, right. Never mind the other three.
No, I like, when you talk about my dad, like, he's the man that gave me a love of sport. He would have fostered that when I was a younger child and whatever. And he would have brought me to my first football matches and things like that. He didn't particularly go to Finn Harps because he was golfing, particularly when it was Sunday afternoons and stuff like that. And then when I made the move to Dublin, that was when he decided he had to golf at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning, so that he'd be free to come to Finn Park with me. Make sure, sometimes I think he did it to make sure I got on the bus back to Dublin after the match rather than staying around, But look at, my dad's been like that for whatever, length of time. He's loved sports. And Finn Park is one of his routines as well.
Tell him I was asking for him anyway. I haven't seen him now in a long time. But I used to enjoy him when he was in the golf club. I never played golf, but I was there working, and we used to have good laughs and that kind of stuff as well. Now, last question for the evening, if you don't mind, Bartley. Really, really enjoyed this. Predictions for the season?
Oh, we'll play games. We'll win some, we'll lose some, and we'll draw some.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Put a tenner on that there. You've heard it here first. Bartley, can I thank you very, very much for taking the time to do this, especially at kind of such late notice as well. I'll be sending this here out. I'm sure there'll be loads of Harp fans and even non-Harps fans who will enjoy your wisdom and your genuine enthusiasm for the team in Ballybofey. You enjoy yourself?
Not at all, Johnny. As I said to you, look, I always enjoy talking about Finn Harps, and that's what it's all about. As I said earlier, sharing your experiences, and hopefully we'll make many more happy ones this season.
You should write a book about it, so you should.
Do you think?